Hi, and welcome to my channel. And in this video, I'm gonna briefly express my thoughts on knockoff puzzles, since this is a topic I sometimes see in certain forums and discussions. And let me just start off by saying that in general, I have no problem with knockoff puzzles, and I'll explain why. It's not to say that it's always 100% of the time the case, but usually that's how I feel about it. So first and foremost, I think that trying to claim ownership to a puzzle design is more complicated than it may seem. Let's say there's a cube, as we have here, and a 2x2. And someone creates a 2x2 cube, which is this puzzle here, which combines both of these into one. The idea for the puzzle is not really original, since everyone knows about cubes and about 2x2s. And the idea of merging them into one puzzle is an idea that crosses the minds of many people. Just because one person has the means, resources, and skills to actually make the puzzle doesn't mean that no one else should have the right to make it just because that one person made it first. That's my opinion. Then there's the question of the mechanism that allows for the 2x2 cube to be possible. You might argue that the person that creates the mechanism for it could claim ownership to that mechanism. However, I'd argue that anyone who's into puzzle building can take apart the cube and the 2x2 and figure out how to make a mechanism that merges both puzzles into one. And we're essentially faced with the same dilemma as I noted earlier. So the question is, where can the line be drawn? Now, I would argue that if it's a puzzle that is completely original, then perhaps, and I emphasize the word perhaps, the person who creates it can indeed claim ownership to it. So let's say back in the day when there was only a 3x3 cube and someone came along and created the first cube. You could argue that they are the inventor of that puzzle. Since it never existed before, you can't claim that anyone could have just conceived the idea, since it's not the same as taking two existing ideas and merging them into one, as with the prior example with the 2x2 and cube to make this puzzle here that merges them. Then there's another point to consider. And my personal belief is that twisty puzzles are not a commodity, but something that should be available to all for a reasonable market price. Let me explain. Let's say you create a new puzzle, entirely original, and you advertise it, and people like it and want it, and manufacturers reach out to you and offer you a deal to mass produce it, where you can get some royalties for it. If you agree and they make a good quality design, good quality puzzle, and they sell it for a reasonable market price, and you get your fair share of royalties, then that is the ideal scenario, of course. However, there are times when puzzle creators may not want to strike a deal with any manufacturer. They may want to make the puzzle available themselves, making it themselves only, and selling it for a very high price as a limited edition collectible puzzle, or just selling it for a high price because it costs them a lot of money and time to actually make the puzzle, and they just don't want to allow any manufacturer to make it. They just want to make it themselves. Thus, because of this, most people can't get their hands on the puzzle, because there's only few of them made and the high cost and everything. And then let's say some manufacturer from China decides to replicate it and sell it without the creator's permission. In that case, I take the side of the Chinese manufacturer, because in my opinion, this kind of puzzle creator is perhaps somewhat greedy and arrogant. Rather than wanting to work together with manufacturers to make the puzzle widely available, to have many people enjoy it, they want to turn it into some collectible where we'll be selling it for overinflated prices and so-called prestige, perhaps. It's a very rare puzzle. Only few people can have it, very expensive, so on and so forth. I can give examples of situations like this that I've seen before, but I don't want to call anyone out publicly for it. But they do exist. And in those kind of cases, I take the side of the Chinese manufacturer. Even though they're not paying any royalties or anything like that. And it's because the puzzle creator didn't want to work with them to begin with. Let's say they wanted to, they wanted to work together, pay him the royalties, but he refused. And so, a lot of people want the puzzle, and so they just went ahead and made it anyway. And I think that's great that they make it, So another case could be where the creator is willing to collaborate with the manufacturer, but the manufacturer then cheats them, makes the puzzle, sells it, and doesn't acknowledge the creator or give them royalties. In that case, I do think that the manufacturer is wrong, and I think they should work together with the creator, but I wouldn't go as far as refusing to buy the puzzle in that kind of case. All the more so when the puzzle is in the first category I presented initially, where it combines two existing ideas that everyone knows about, like these two puzzles here, to make this one. And in that case, it's kind of a bit of a gray area in my opinion. An example of this kind of knockoff would be the Clover 2x2, which is a new puzzle that was recently released, and it's this one here. And this is a puzzle by Grant Anderson. He was the one who first made the puzzle. Now, would I consider this puzzle an original creation? Not really. And since it combines existing ideas into one, it has a 2x2 turn, it has these shallow edge turns and cornered turns, you know, aspects of puzzles that we're all familiar with, and just combined into one idea. And so just because the one person was the first one to make this idea, I don't think that means that any manufacturer, anyone else can't make it. And once again, you could argue it's maybe some gray area, and to each their own, basically. But in this particular case, I should note that from what I've seen in the Twisty Puzzle forum, Grant is actually okay with this puzzle being released, even though supposedly he made a deal with Yushin and they didn't fulfill their end of the deal. Nevertheless, he's happy with it. He's happy the fact that the puzzle that he first created is now being mass-produced and many people can enjoy it. And I think that's wonderful. I think this is how all puzzle creators should be. That this is the kind of attitude that they should have, you know, enjoying the fact that so many people are gonna get to enjoy the puzzle that they designed, whether it's an entirely original design or it combines existing ideas into one design. And yeah, so those are my thoughts on knockoff puzzles. I know that my opinion may not be a popular one, and you could argue whether it's right or wrong, but it is my opinion that nonetheless, at least for now, and I thought I'd share it here. And one thing to note is that I actually sort of designed the puzzle once myself. I wouldn't really call it a design. It was a bandaged cube. You may have seen in some videos I made a while back about the Navi block series, where I made 4 different kind of bandaged cube versions that I never saw before, and I put together these ideas. And I personally would be very happy if any manufacturer would just produce them without even asking me, and if I never get a penny out of it, just seeing these puzzles in production and knowing that people are going to get to enjoy them, that will make me happy, you know. And I think that's what puzzle solving and collecting is all about. It's about having fun and just enjoying the puzzles. It shouldn't be about money, about prestige, about making it very rare, collectible, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so those are my thoughts, and I thought I'd share it here. So that'll be all for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time.